Here is the story of Mary Spencer. She was born in Waterloo, Iowa. Her family migrated to Iowa from Ohio. In our interview, Mrs. Spencer describes some of the racism that her family experienced while living in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Despite the racism, she tells how the women in her family pressed on and obtained teaching degrees from the local college. Also, they lived in a coal mining town called Buxton. Buxton was unique for having a large African American population. It existed from 1900 to approximately 1925. Her family made Waterloo their home in the late 1920s, where Mrs. Spencer grew up and retired as a teacher at Logan Middle School. When and where were you born?
I was born in Waterloo, Iowa. I was born at home on a Sunday, May 27th, 1934.
1934. So you're a native of Waterloo?
Native of Waterloo.
Okay. Now I know you have an extensive photo collection about your family.
Yes.
About your family coming to Waterloo. Not necessarily coming to Waterloo, but about some of the experiences and things like that. You have a very, very impressive photo collection that covers your mother's side.
Mama's side. Daddy's side we didn't get.
You didn't get much of your father.
Mm-mm.
Okay, much of your father. Wait, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what part of the country did she come from as they began to make their moves to Mount Pleasant and then to Waterloo?
The family that I knew about was from Bellefontaine, Ohio.
Okay. All right.
And they tell that that particular generation came to Iowa covered wagon.
Okay.
So that's how far back, whenever people were coming west by covered wagon,
Okay.
they were probably a part of that. She mentioned in her writings that one of the stops was in Indiana. When you're traveling by covered wagon, you don't go too far too fast.
Okay.
Excuse and then
Right.
they stopped in Illinois someplace. Okay. And then
about what time was this? Because you said Bellefontaine, Ohio.
Bellefontaine.
Bellefontaine, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
About what time period approximately was this? Mid 1800s.
Yes, late 1800s.
Near Bellefontaine, Ohio.
Yes.
Bellefontaine, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. I won't do it to you again.
Okay. Bellefontaine, Ohio. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Now continue. So you're covered wagon. You're traveling at this point.
And they went as far west as Nebraska.
Okay.
Didn't quite like that too well, so they moved back into Iowa, into Mount Pleasant.
You're talking about the arrival of a black family to Mount Pleasant. They've come to Mount Pleasant, Iowa, small, white for the most part. Okay. I know that you have a photograph, very, very good photograph. What are their names? Identify the people in that photograph.
There was Aunt Nora,
Okay.
Nora Maybelle Harris, who taught, and then my mother, Grace Beatrice Harris. And she taught when she graduated from Iowa Wesleyan too. She also went to Buxton, Iowa to teach, where Aunt Nora had been teaching.
Okay.
Then there was Aunt Viola.
Okay.
And she did not go to the college route, I guess.
Okay.
She and then Uncle Willie.
And then there's your mother.
Yeah, she's the little bitty one.
Now let's talk about your mother, because she would pretty much be she would grow up in Mount Pleasant.
Yes, she did.
Correct? Okay. What do you recall her talking about? Any stories about Mount Pleasant? Or,
there apparently were not a lot of African Americans, blacks, colored people in Mount Pleasant, because I remember one of the tales Mother told was that when she went to kindergarten, or first grade, because they didn't have kindergarten, that she had to sit in an area that was better known as Nigger Row.
Okay, all right.
And said she just broke into tears and was almost next to hysterical. And when she went home and told her mother, Grandma went back and raised some cane and said
Okay.
she's not to sit there. It had to do with the strength of her mother.
Tell us about how she would go on and get the college degree at Mount Pleasant. Let's talk about that a little bit. What
When she finished high school in Mount Pleasant, both she and her sister attended Iowa Wesleyan and graduated from there.
Okay.
And got their teaching degree. Most black women in those days, that was the only type of occupation that was reasonably open and available to them, that they could feel like they were doing something worthwhile with the education they'd received.
So you come from a family of educators.
Yes.
Okay, you come from a family of
Education,
educators.
they felt,
All right.
was the key out of being looked down on
Okay.
as a Negro. Most Negroes or black people were not educated,
Mm-hmm.
nor did they even think that they had the aspiration to want to be that way. And our family has always had that, generations back.
Well, I know your mother has taught at a number of schools during her time as an educator. Let's talk about her teaching experiences as far as Buxton, her going to Buxton and teaching there. Let's talk a little bit about that.
She said a lot of times the children, she would have the very first beginning, which would be first grade. And some of them were like 8, 9, 10,
Okay.
because the parents would, they were kind of reluctant to send them to school because they needed them to be working.
Okay.
Even whatever little thing that they could do that would help.
Let's talk a little bit about Buxton and what you know about Buxton, because we know it's a very unique town. When we look at the history of Iowa,
Yes.
and we talk about black folks, what do you recall her talking about any stories?
I guess just the idea that there were only like two different people there. There were the black people,
Okay. All right.
and then the other, and they lived in a certain area.
Okay. Okay.
And the white people, who were the Swedes, had lived in an area they called Swedetown, and then I guess there was a downtown area where they kind of, because Daddy ran the YMCA there.
Ah, okay. All right. Okay.
And so
And so you said there's a so you have black folks, you have the black population, then you have
in Buxton.
then you have the white population, which is made up of
Swedetown.
Swedes for the most part. Swedetown. So how did they interact, or did they interact? What do
Only
you know?
probably when they came to town, to the grocery stores or to the whatever places they had where you could purchase things.
Okay. All right.
And as far as what I can generally remember, I think even the YMCA there was
Okay.
African American.
Ah, okay. Your dad worked there. He worked there. Now this is my understanding. This is where they would meet, at least. I mean, but this is where they would meet, is in Buxton. Okay.
If it wasn't in church, it would be at the Y.
Do you know why your father left Buxton? And why
The
your mother?
mines petered out.
Okay. All right.
And he left from there, and where did Daddy go? I think he went first to Cedar Rapids
Okay.
and didn't find anything that suited him, and he had some other friends that had moved to Waterloo from Buxton, and so then he moved up to Waterloo, and that's where he stayed.
What would he do in Waterloo? Where would he?
His first job was at a hotel,
Okay.
and whatever they did that black people could do in a hotel, that's what he did. Hotel Ellis, which is no longer downtown,
Okay.
downtown Waterloo. And then after a while, he went to work at Rice.
Okay, he's at Rath. He's at Rath Packing. 1925, they get married. What was she doing in Waterloo? What?
Housewife.
Housewife. Okay, all right.
That was traditional in those days. You get married, you were a housewife.
And so now you're here in Waterloo. Now, what is your mother doing in the way of any social organizations in Waterloo?
Yes.
Is she involved anything?
Active in the church.
Okay, all right.
And they also formed what was known a women's group, a social improvement club, because she felt like, women should get together and keep themselves intellectually alert.
This social organization that your mother is a part of, did she start this organization?
She and a couple of other ladies,
a couple
yes.
other ladies start this. This is very progressive for the time period.
Mm-hmm. One of the things they did was that they eventually got some money and gave scholarships.
Okay.
For those students that wanted to go on to college. And if they didn't have the money to give to them, they at least encouraged them, to get out and get their education and go on through.
Also, I know you said, you mentioned she was part of the church. I know you have a nice photograph in your collection of her standing with the pastor and a group of members from the church.
Oh, yes, and she's holding the baby. The baby was Melvin, so that would have been 1927.
Okay, all right. Do you recall anything that how she was involved with the church or what she was doing for the church?
Between Melvin and me, she'd had some problems delivering.
Okay.
And so she wasn't as able to be as active as she would like to have been with the church.
Let's shift over to your father, because he was working hard at Rath, but he also was able to be a part of the Masons. Is that correct?
The Masons, yes.
He was a Mason.
He never made the shrine. He didn't go that level.
Okay.
But he was a Mason.
I know we have a photograph.
Now that was he was given his 50-year pin.
Okay. Yeah. Who are the people in the photograph? The ceremony taking place of your father.
William Coney, Nathaniel Taylor, Daddy, Bishop Burt, Russell Burt, Jacob Brown.
So both of your parents very active. They're doing
in the
stuff.
Community.
Yeah, they're doing stuff, very progressive stuff. Let's talk a little bit about yourself, okay, and how your mother inspired you, because we know that you're an educator. You yourself are a teacher. Okay. Let's start a little bit about, where did you go to school at? Where did you go to school at when you got to Waterloo?
From there, I went out to Francis Grout,
Okay.
the grade school there, and the junior high was downtown, where City Hall is now.
Okay, all right.
And from there, I went to East High.
Okay.
And graduated in 1952. Got married the day after I graduated.
Uh-huh.
And the stipulation from my mother was that, yeah, you can go ahead and get married, but you got to go to school. That fall, I came to, of all the places, best known as Iowa State Teachers College.
And then you would go on to graduate.
I didn't get to go very long because Jolene came along.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Beginning
okay.
of the children, and we had the 5 of them in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I got involved with the kids and their activities and did basically the same thing my mother did. It was like, only I was active and able to get out and back them up and be with them wherever they were. So I followed them around every place they were into and went back and came up here to school and graduated.
Tell me about that day. What was it like? All the sacrifices that you made to raise your children.
Just joy.
And then here you are, the cap and gown.
Just joy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, just joy.
And then what was the reaction of your children and your grandchildren? Your grandma walks across the stage, mother walks across the stage. What was
I
the
used to
reaction?
laugh when I'd come up to the graduation ceremonies of UNI, and parents would be yelling and whistling and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got mine, I looked up and I could hear my kids doing that. And I thought, oh, no, I thought you were more sophisticated than that. But
Mary E. Spencer.
they were all very supportive. The oldest girl sent funds to help keep things going. Encouragement from all sides.
That's great. Now you've done it. You're across the stage now. The teaching experiences. Where would you teach at? What?
I did student teaching at West High and at Logan.
Okay.
And principal at Logan, Don Duggan,
Okay.
he said, you got a job.
Mm-hmm.
Just that way, just that quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have a job.
What did you find rewarding yourself as an educator? What did you find rewarding about teaching?
To be able to motivate students and encourage them, and that education was not just a requirement that was placed on them, but a necessity for them to get ahead in life. If they wanted to be anything and go any place and do anything or have any money in their pockets, they needed an education.
What would you say to this generation of teachers, as far as what advice would you give them, being in the classroom, got the degree, and now you're out and you're on the outside looking in because you went through the process and you're done? What advice would you give, one piece of advice that you would give to future educators?
Don't give up. Okay. Sometimes you can get a student you think that's just absolutely not going to do anything, any kind of which way, not going to account for anything, but always encourage your students. Not just in the classroom activities and their education, but for them to look beyond that and what this will do for them. This is their foundation for the lifestyle.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your story with you, for telling us about your photo collection, a marvelous photo collection. And I know that your mother will be very proud of you. I know that your family obviously is very proud of you.
I hope so.
And I'm proud of you, and congratulations for everything that you have accomplished.
Thank you.
It's been a privilege and an honor speaking with you.